Thank you, Namrata. So let's welcome on stage our last speaker of today. He is co-founder of Agrahyah Technologies and Avaz.com. He is also a Google Developers Expert of Cloud and a mentor at Google for Startup Accelerator in India. He will be speaking on essentials of GCP. Please put your hands together for Rushabh Vasa.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I saw everyone smiling when she said like last speaker. I said, wow, lecture. Great. So yeah, so today I'll be speaking on GCP, this Google Cloud platform. How many people are into cloud or want to learn cloud? Okay, nice, great, good to see. How many people have used any cloud service? Okay, great. How many people used GCP? Okay, great, yeah. Is it like people who raise more hand gets more swag? Because for every question, everyone is like, yes. That's good crowd, good audience, like it's really nice. So right, so today, as I said, like, we'll be talking about specifically about the GCP, but before that, like since you are kind of all are developers, either students or professionals, and you must have encountered cloud in some other way in current development scenarios. Because now in today's world, when you are a developer, you know that cloud is something very essential for any, whether you are front-end developer, back-end developer, even if you are Android developer or Firebase, anything like to talk about the technology, everything. Even Avirup said like if you're working something on the IoT, you still need to kind of understand and learn cloud. So that's how essential it is in today's world. So before like I know we go and get into this thing. So like we all know, I hope you know this guy, right? And he's the one who explains the cloud in the most or simplest way. Can we just we can play this video?
अगर आप गूगल
Okay.
अगर आप गूगल इस्तेमाल करते हैं मनीष जी, तो आप देखिए कि गूगल में आप अपने सारे डॉक्यूमेंट्स जो हैं आप सिर्फ कंप्यूटर पे रिकॉर्ड हो जाते हैं। अच्छा, गूगल का जो पूरा सॉफ्टवेयर है, आपने कभी गूगल की सॉफ्टवेयर सीडी देखी है कभी बिकते हुए? नहीं है, वो सारी क्लाउड के अंदर है।
Right. So have you ever seen a CD of a Google? No, right? That's what he's saying. Like one of the most easiest definition of cloud he has ever given कि cloud है क्या? तो जो भी चीज़ है जो कहीं पे cloud seeding, like CD नहीं है, but somewhere in the cloud and you can download. That's what Google is. That's what he explains. But the point is that in a nutshell, he's right. Something which you don't own physically, but you can still access. That's the cloud, right? And that's what we are going to talk about today. So like now I don't think I have to explain what is cloud. He did in a one simple line. But that's not the technical definition though. We will definitely understand more about the cloud as a platform. And so no, just before we get into the actual cloud, and since a lot of people raised hand when I said like, have you used cloud? I just want to give us some background about the cloud so that you understand, what exactly the cloud, how the cloud evolved in the current days and how it was earlier and where is it going now, so if in the future, like what kind of things and services that you look for into cloud as a service as a whole. So a little history is like, it started with on-prem. So someone like sitting, these big companies, they said, okay, now we want to store some data. Where do we store? So they said like, well, let's buy some machines. We put it like, we call it data warehouse sort of a thing. They put it in our office and then we, kind of use it when and where we need. Then they realize, okay, now the demand for the storage is increasing, for processing is increasing. Like let's say they had 100 users, now the users has gone to 1000. So the current setup or the servers are not enough, so they have to buy more servers, like the physical hardware servers. So they started buying that server. Then they realized, okay, now let's say if today I have 1 lakh user, so I need 100 servers. Then they realized, okay, now but every day there are not like 1 lakh people we have. Sometimes there are 10,000 users. So what do we do with the rest of the servers that we have? Let's say if I bought 100 servers and all 100 servers are not being utilized. So they started something called the time sharing. So what I'll do, out of 100 server, I'll rent out 10 servers to some other company or smaller company and they will pay me the rent. That's how the hardware trading, I mean you can say in a simple way, it's hardware trading where I have a physical machine, I rent out that machine to you and you can reuse it and then pay me for my using my hardware, right? But then someday some smart people like realized, okay, now only hardware renting is not a good money business. I mean, we are not making good amount out of it. Because if I give you server, you give me a fixed price, right? That's what. I mean, there is no scalability in terms of earning. So they realized, okay, now let's say something. If I have 100 server and if I giving 10 servers to any startup or any company, he's giving fixed rent. But how do I make more money out of it? And that's where this concept of cloud. They said, okay, we won't only give you the server, we will also give you the services along with the server. So it's not only a physical hardware that you are having, but you will also have some sort of extra additional services on that server, so that you can, your development becomes easy, your production becomes easy, and things like that. And that's where the cloud, and that's what is cloud. You have a physical machine rented on a cloud, and then you also use those services. That's what the all cloud services, whether it's AWS, GCP, or Azure, they provide additional service and tool for you guys to kind of make this your application better. So that's what the cloud, that's how the journey of the cloud started. And that's why like Amazon being one of the popular cloud provider in early days, and then eventually that was adopted by Microsoft and Google, and now we have a lot of other service providers, right? Now let's understand how do people use cloud. So when we say, we understand that right now, and one thing is very clear, like we all saw that, okay, now you have an infrastructure, but how do we use it? So one is like, of course, to kind of uh, host your application or use kind of services like storage, compute, AI services nowadays. And then there are other lot of services like IoT services. If you're building some IoT stuff, you kind of build, have your data warehouses. There are tons of things. But before we kind of understand how do we use, let's understand again that how do we use it in a different ways of the services provided. So there is the infrastructure as a service, like you would have heard these terms, like infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and then software as a service. SaaS being a very known and very uptrending term nowadays. All the VCs are interested to invest in the SaaS companies nowadays. And what is it like then? So how all are different, but all are part of cloud. So either if you are using or providing or building something for any of these three areas, that's the the core is cloud, but all are different. So when you are say infrastructure, it's just a bare shell. Like for example, in terms of GCP, if you are using a compute engine, you are just using a bare shell engine. You are just defining your processor, your RAM, your storage, and that's it. And you are kind of going to host your own application on top of it. You're going to use your own OS or something like that. That's the infrastructure as a service, where you are just paying for the infrastructure. Then there is a platform as a service, something on top of it, like where you kind of use this as a platform. Let's say app engine in a GCP, where you, let's say if you want to host a WordPress website, you don't have to do anything. You just go on GCP, go to app engine, you can install the WordPress image, and you can start running your website. It's all will be managed by the GCP. You don't have to worry about the scaling. You don't have to worry about setting up the entire hardware. I mean the configuration and all that. It will be all done automatically. You are using that platform to run your services. And then there is a software as a service. So example would be we use Gmail, G Suite, Google Drive. All these are software which are on top of this platform or infrastructure, and you are paying for that service. That's a SaaS, like just any other SaaS, Salesforce or Zoho. All these are SaaS, right? So that's the primary difference between all these components of the cloud. And why it is important to understand is because when you're building something on these platforms, or if you're planning to build your own product or service, you need to understand where you fall into and how you're kind of going to build. Because I've seen a lot of startups who kind of build something, and then they realize, okay, the cost to own that infrastructure or the platform is so high that they have to kind of re-engineer and restructure their entire application and product. For example, I'll give you, if you're building an application, and that is like let's say you're building something like a Zoho, you can use the platform as a service, but you will end up paying lot more cloud bill eventually. Like when your product scales up, when you have millions of users, your cloud bill will be so much in millions of dollars that you will not be able to afford. Then you need to plan, okay, I need to go for infrastructure because I can manage my own infrastructure and I can only configure those resources which are required, and I can definitely scale up and scale down. There will be some DevOps cost around it, but that I can absorb. So that's the kind of thing where you have to plan. So that's why I just want to give you some background around it. Now, again, this is the overall journey of the cloud, as we can say. Now let's talk about the GCP or the Google Cloud Platform as what we are going to talk about. So what's so interesting about GCP? So first thing is, of course, there are other cloud platforms which are available, but GCP, of course, it has a free tier. So as a student or as a startup, if you really want to kind of start something, you can go for a free tier, try to explore some tools which are there, build some prototype. Then when you go to market, then you want to start the billing and stuff like that. So there is a free tier for all the services, whether it's compute, storage, AI, or any service. Every service in GCP has a free tier and the paid tier. So it's like you use certain amount of services for certain time or until certain uses, that's free, and then you will be billed for that. So for a minimum uses, you can go for a free tier. Of course, it has a lot of different pricing options. There is a committed price where you commit certain use and then you get a discount and things like that. So that's a later. Of course, you can also opt for a lot of credit which you get when you are using GCP. And then when you when you look at other platform, when you compare it in terms of the services, like how do you define that which platform you should go? Even though it's a Google platform, I'm not kind of advocating that you should go for GCP, but when you are choosing any cloud platform, you need to understand what kind of services which are going to require, and then evaluate based on those services whether you should go for GCP or AWS or Azure or any other cloud platform. So that's very important for you to kind of understand your requirements and your business needs in that sense. But when we talk about GCP, I mean, these are the standard characteristics, it's of course high speed, so you have very low latency, you have highly scalable infrastructure. So let's say if you build an application where you have only 100 users, then you go to 1,000 users, 1 lakh users, millions users. So how you scale your infrastructure? So that is very easy. And GCP I like personally because it has a very easy to use GUI. So people or developers who are not thorough into the cloud platform, they can still use the GUI or the Google Cloud Platform to configure and run most of the services. So that's also becomes very easy and user friendly, I would say. Again, low cost, and one of the most important aspect of GCP, or the thing I like, is its ML services. So Google has a lot of different ML services that you can use. In morning also, Manoranjan talk about there is something in the Firebase also, you can build some ML and stuff like that. So there are a lot of services which are really nice compared to any other cloud provider, and that's something we will talk a little more in details about it later, but I just wanted to highlight that particular advanced ML part. So how usually, why cloud works, as I said, if you are building something in India or for a product in India, this is the Indian landscape. There are 700 million plus smartphone users in India. So, if you're building something, you need to think about the scale. Most of the time I have seen that startup fail because they've not thought about the users they're going to have. Let's say you build some application, you are not thinking about how much memory it's using, how much storage it's using, and then eventually when you realize, when you get 2 million, 5 million users, the usage or the cloud bill or even the performance goes in a very different way. So you have to really plan your architecture, plan your resources. So this is a possibility. We know that video consumption is high again. So if you're building something on the video or content space, the CDNs are there. How you use the CDN? In fact, whether you should use CDN or not, that's the first thing you should really ask for yourself. It's not because there you should use it. So there is something. Let's say if you are building a video startup or an app which streams video, you can use CDN. Of course, that's something which is there. But you don't need to use CDN all the time. What you can do, if it is not critical, you can use Cloud Bucket. It's a storage, but it works as a CDN. So you store your video file into the Cloud Bucket and stream it to any of your player. Let's say if you are embedding a player in your website, you take that URL from the Cloud Bucket and that video and put it in your website. It will stream like a CDN, but you don't have to pay for the CDN. So you can save this kind of cost. So that this kind of understanding of product and how they work is also very important. And when it comes to GCP and why GCP I like, because it's connected to the entire Google ecosystem. So when you're using a GCP, it is also connected with G Suite, which is Google for Workspace now. So you're, if you're using any sort of collaboration tools and all, that can also be a part of your GCP. Google Assistant, if you're building something on Assistant or Google Home, again you can use it with a single infrastructure. Firebase again is a part of a GCP. If you're using Firebase, your billing will also still, if your billing will happen through the GCP. There's analytics. You can use Google Analytics, integrate with GCP seamlessly. Let's say if you have an application, you want to track how the usage is happening, you want to track the user journey, and there are a lot of data that you want to track. You can connect your analytics easily with BigQuery, import all the data in the BigQuery, and run analytics on top of it. There is a Looker, which was Data Studio earlier, so you can visualize your data, that what kind of traffic you have, what kind of you can create multiple dashboards on it. So all it within the one single ecosystem is something that you get, and that's very important. As a developer, you really want to minimize your efforts when you're building something. So, and that's why I like GCP as well. And Google in India as a cloud region, there are two regions. One is Mumbai. There are three zones and two regions actually. One is in Mumbai, one is Delhi. So if you have a very critical application, you want a really high-speed data transfer happening between your application and the cloud, you can use these regions. So like say if your users are from India, and if you have your cloud region also as India, the data transfer becomes really faster, and that is faster, is like to 90% faster than if you take some server in US. So that kind of thing also, but again the price is high for India region, the price is lower for the US region. So you need to define that whether how critical your data transfer is, what data you want in US, India, what data you want outside India, and then again there are a lot of privacy and data rules also applicable, so you need to think about that as well. So selecting the zone, selecting the region is also equally important in that sense. Now, well, like we spoke about what is cloud. Now let's see what are the different components in the cloud. So when it comes to uh, different components, one is a compute, which is the most essential thing for any application to run. Then the other is a storage, then there is a AI, and then the data analysis. Any application or product you see nowadays, these are the four components which are very important for the architecture or the base. These are the base architecture of your application that you're building. So really need to think of all these 3-4 things, and then under that which kind of service and what services you're going to use under GCP. So we'll see one by one. So let's say in compute, Google has multiple compute options for you to kind of select. As we said, there is a compute engine, which is a bare shell machine that you kind of allot for your application. You can define your storage, RAM, and processors, and just run it as a core, like plain simple raw processor. If you don't want to get into that thing, there is an app engine. App engine is nothing but a very simple GUI based interface where you can select which app engine, which OS you want in your application, or you want to, as I gave the earlier example of installing a WordPress, or you want to use some other services, it's there. App engine also has a marketplace where you can select certain services which are required for your application. Then there is a container engine if you're using Docker and container, and if you want something to be managed by Google in terms of so these are GK engines basically, so you can use that as well. So these are the 3 options which are there. So based on the requirements, you can choose those and configure it. Now then, when we talk about the storage and databases, there are different types of storage available, different type of databases we use nowadays, from MySQL, NoSQL, and all the sort of databases. So you can choose which database to use when, and based on that you can select the services in the GCP. These are the top 4 services. There are other services as well, but you can choose whichever is required. So for example, there's a cloud storage, then there is a cloud big table, there is a cloud data storage, there's a cloud SQL, which is for your SQL databases. Persistent disk is required. So there are multiple ways where you can actually store data, and as per the need you can choose which service to use when. Okay, I'm not going too much into detail of this because of the time limitation, but I mean this is just an overview so that you understand what are the possibilities, and then whichever is of your interest you can go and learn more in detail. Right, then there is a AI and machine learning. This is something where I'm going to spend a little more time in when it comes to the GCP services, because otherwise storage and cloud you pretty much know, right? So what are the different AI services which are available? So there are different APIs which, in terms of your AI, which is the vision API, there's a translate API, then there is a natural language API, text to speech, speech to text. All these kind of APIs are available, and which are very easy to use. You just integrate the API in an application. Let's say if you are building something for image recognition, if you're building some startup into agri-tech or any kind of technology where you want to read some images or analyze some images, there is a vision API which is available. You just easily integrate that and start using it from day one. So you don't need to kind of go and build the entire ML model of your own to kind of understand and read the images and analyze it. It like just set up in a day's time. So that's how this kind of API works. There is a translation API, there is a natural language processing API, and so on. So we'll talk in details about it later, but yeah. And then there is a big data. Now we all have heard about this term called this big data, data analytics, data engineering, and that sort of things. That's all is part of the big data suite of the Google Cloud platform. For example, one of the most used is BigQuery. It's very easy to use tool. You can actually, I mean, you don't need to kind of know too much of coding to kind of use BigQuery. There is a GUI-based interface. You import your existing data. You can import it from your CSV file also, or you can import it from any other database, SQL database. You can just import into the BigQuery. It will create a table and like a similar structure to your databases, and then you can run the query. And this BigQuery can run up to the petabyte size scale of data size. So even if you have a data in petabyte scale, you can still run and crunch data and get a proper output, analyzed, and then you can connect it with the Looker. Now Looker Studio, earlier it was Data Studio, now it's called Looker Studio, where it gives you a lot of templates also to visualize. Let's say if you are building, you have some data of sales of your organization. We just import that data and put it in a very smart graphical format. There are a lot of templates are available where you can import the data, and it will give you in a pie chart, the graph, tables, and all that sort of things. So you can the management needs some sales data every day, and also it works real time, so you can ingest data from your real-time using real-time API as well. So there are a lot of things that can be done using big data. And then there is a Google Life Science that's mostly used for if you're doing something in terms of medical and healthcare services and so on. So there are a lot of services, and then there's a machine learning service. We spoke about the cloud machine, the vision API and speech API. There is a cloud machine learning as well. If you really want to kind of build your own machine learning model without kind of putting a lot of efforts, you can use machine learning as well. There is something called the auto ML as well, where if you are not a machine learning expert, but still you want to build some machine learning model for your own users, you can still do that using auto ML. That also we'll see in later. Now, a lot of people kind of get confused between the GCP and AWS. Most people might be using AWS. So this is just a comparison slide where you can understand, like, there are similar services in AWS and GCP. If you're using GCP, what is a similar service in AWS? Say in like for example in Google we simply call it the cloud storage. In AWS we call it the RDS, or if you have cloud database, you call it as a DynamoDB. There is a EC2 instance that we call it as an AWS. That's what Compute Engine is in GCP. So it's all equivalent of GCP and AWS. These are the common services which are used. I just thought I'll just kind of make you familiar. So even using in any environment of cloud, you kind of can compare the services. So this is something I just wanted to show you, like what can be done using the GCP. This is one of our product called Awaaz.com. It's a podcast platform where we create audio content, and people can listen to the audio content through the phones or the in car, in smart speakers and so on. So endpoints are different. So you can see the Awaaz, I mean, these are all the endpoints. People can consume this content from anywhere. Like you can listen to the same content using on your Jio set-top box or on your Android phone, in Spotify or in iOS, which is the not smartphone, it's a feature phone by the Jio, the 1500 rupees feature phone, right? So there could be multiple endpoints, but because of cloud, it's easy to manage the same application with a single backend. It runs on different endpoints. You can also now it is available on Visteon, which is the car ECUs. So Visteon is a company which makes the car ECU, which is in Mahindra XUV 700 now. So you can listen to that content while driving through that also. So the point is, like, there could be centralized system in the front, in the backend, and there could be multiple endpoints. You can all connect, and it's easy to manage using cloud. So which are the services that we are using? So we are using Kubernetes engine, we are using App Engine, we are also using Cloud CDN, we are using Cloud Storage, SQL. So these are some of the services that we are using to kind of run this application. We manage 6 million streams every month. We have million plus users, the same, and the backend is same for everyone. So we collect a lot of data in the backend. So we know what people are listening to, what kind of choices that people have, the different genres of content they are consuming, from where they are consuming. There are a lot of people who listen to some content in the phone and then also listen to the same content in the Jio set-top box and Saregama Karwan and Spotify. So because we have a centralized backend, we get a lot of user data, and that helps us kind of build our own recommendation engine. So we know that what is the kind of content that you like, which is your preferred language, because we are in 5 languages. So we know that, okay, you like to listen to the Hindi content, but you also listen to the Gujarati and English content. So I know that what kind of choice you have. You like to listen to the comedy shows or more of business shows or a devotional content. There are a lot, because as a person we have different choices. Like a lot of, we see in morning time, a lot of people listen to the devotional content, but then people want to listen to some romantic stories or horror stories as well. So how do we define that and based on that data, how it helps us understand what kind of content people like. So how we personalize that experience for you, what kind of shows should be recommended to you, what kind of notifications to be sent to you. All this is possible because we have a lot of data, and that's all possible because our system in the backend is very centralized. So we don't have to collect some data from some place and then some data from some other and then kind of bring it all together and then churn those data and get the exact output. So that's also a very helpful thing. Now, when we spoke about the ML, I really wanted to kind of give you some emphasis on that part, that how do we use the cloud or the ML service on the cloud, specifically on GCP. There are different options how we can use the cloud. So if you are an application developer, you really don't want to kind of get into too much into the ML models and service. You don't want to learn those things. You can use machine learning APIs, as I said earlier. If you are a data scientist or ML practitioner, you can use ML engine where you can build your own cloud. So you can use or if you are just want to explore and you don't want to put too much of efforts into building your ML model, because let's say if your application is something else and you just have one part, like for example for us in the example of ours, we said we just need some recommendation based on the what people like and what kind of content people are consuming. We don't want to kind of invest too much because of that into building your own custom ML model. We use AutoML to kind of get that kind of recommendation without putting too much of efforts into it, and it's all automated. So what are the products which are there in AutoML? So again, AutoML Vision. So AutoML table is something that we use. It's again like SQL's, SQL table, where you can use the AutoML. Let's say if you have sales data and you want to predict something, okay, what would be my sales next month, or which will be the product which will be in demand next month, and so on. You can use AutoML table without writing a single line of code. Using the GUI, you can still get the same prediction that you are looking for. So that's one of the easiest way to build any AutoML. Again, you have AutoML Vision, again for images. You have video intelligence. If you are running some sort of video analysis, you can use AutoML in that. Let's say if you have a video and you want to find out, a typical AutoML use case is like you see movies and then there are smoking is very, you are supposed to show the warning that smoking is injurious to health. So you just run an AutoML video intelligence where you can identify where are the scenes of smoking, and it will automatically label that video as saying, smoking is injurious to health, sort of. So it all can be done and automated in a very simple way without using or writing any sort of lengthy codes and things like that. Again, and then how do you use Google Cloud? So there are multiple ways. As I said, one is the very simple way, which is the Cloud Platform Console, which is the most easiest way to use it. Most of services are accessible through the web user interface, where you don't have to kind of write the code. If you are really a pro and coder and you want to explore, there is a command line, which is a Cloud Shell, or you can use the Cloud SDK also to access all the services that is there. And or there is a Android and iOS application as well, if you want to be hands-on to your cloud and you want to monitor certain services, or even if you want to write some or do some basic commands and all, you can do it from your phone as well through using this Cloud Console mobile application. Or if you want to build something of your own and connect with third-party applications and all, there is a REST-based API framework as well. So you can access the GCP using all these 4 different options, variety of options which are there. Specifically, I just wanted to give you one example of what is possible using Cloud AutoML. So this is a case study which was done by Google jointly with Australia NBC. I just want to play this video, and then we'll talk about this. Great. So what they did, you can actually, I mean, cricket is the most unpredictable game, right? That's what we say. They actually build an ML model using AutoML where you can predict fall of a wicket 5 minutes before it actually happens, right? I mean, imagine, like सब लोग बोल रहे everyone will be like MPL पे जाके अब ये model बना के will play. But they did it, right? So because there was a lot of data which was available for all the players, cricket, pitch, match. There are like some 83 parameters they considered. They build an ML model on using the AutoML. That means with the minimum coding, and they made a prediction model where you can actually predict a fall of a wicket. Imagine something like this building. No? So yeah, I mean, I just wanted to show that what is the possibility of using this product and building some amazing stuff. So this was one of the example that I had. So I just thought I'll share this with you. Now how AutoML works is very easy. You get your training data, give it to AutoML. AutoML will do the training, deployment, and it will serve you the right result. You can access that result through the REST API. As simple as that. So you don't have to kind of do too much of thing in that sense. Now when we speak about the cloud, and there are a lot of opportunities which are there in the cloud. So how do you, if you kind of really want to get into the cloud as a career, there are a lot of options and opportunities there in the market. You can be a cloud architecture, you can be a cloud consultant, cloud software engineer, there is a DevOps operations, there is a cloud service developer, and so on. So there are a lot of possibilities, and there is a lot of demand also for this. So I've seen in the market, there is in nowadays every startup or any company is have that cloud strategy. Earlier it was just part of their execution. Now they have a separate cloud strategy for them, and for that there is a huge demand in the market. So if you are a student or a professional looking to get into the cloud as a career, there are many other options and opportunities available in the market. So get into it. This is the right time. Also there is a cloud certifications. If you want to learn more about this, there are different certifications available with GCP, Associate Engineer, Professional Cloud Certification. There is something called G Suite certification. G Suite, which is a Google Workspace now. This is also very interesting. You can build your application. There is a different marketplace, like you have Android marketplace. There is a Workspace marketplace where you put your application which works with the workspace, and then people can or the companies can buy, and that's a big business. Trust me, like most people don't know, but you build some amazing products, and there are companies who have made billions out of this marketplace, because these are the mostly enterprise customers who use this workspace as a professional service, and then they need some additional tools like security, access control, and there are many other things which you can do, and you can be a part of that marketplace. So you can do the certification, learn how to build, and then build some of your product and put it in marketplace and make money as well. So yeah, that's the most important thing. Now there are some things which are unanswered. Let's see what, I mean, again, like you just started with this guy, so I thought I'll end with this guy, what he says. So he is still wondering कि बारिश होगी तो क्लाउड का क्या होगा. So but I think you guys must have found the answer कि बारिश हो या अंधार हो या बादल आ जाए, क्लाउड को कुछ प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगा. Your data will be safe, and you can actually scale as your applications or your user base grows. That's it. That's from my side. And if you want to learn, these are some of the resources. Great. So, and happy to connect here. I'll be around. All right. So, thank you. Thanks being a patient and nice audience. Thank you.